Welcome into the Skinny Podcast. It's the weekly Potpourri edition. I'm Richard Skinner, Local12.com digital sports columnist and editor with Rick Broering. And as always, it's presented by Blake, the Attorney Mason. We did skip a week last week. We promised we were going to try to get a podcast together, but our schedules didn't quite jive as both Rick and I were on vacation. I did do a podcast on that Monday with Mike Petralia, so hopefully that sufficed for something. We talked, obviously, a lot of Bengals. But Rick and I got a chance to skip a week, if you will. And so we've got probably some vacation stories, perhaps. I know I've got a vacation travel story I'll get to here shortly. And we've got some other stuff to talk about on this week's show. So sorry for last week. We try to be consistent with this. We try to stay consistent with this, but occasionally it just doesn't work, Rick.
I think that's only the second time we've ever skipped a week, actually. We did it one time when I was in Mexico, and I think that's the second time maybe. So
that's right.
We'll start with the Bengals, Skinny, because the Bengals Ring of Honor game was just announced. It'll be on October 26th against the New York Jets this year. The nominees for this year's Ring of Honor include Jim Breach, James Brooks, Chris Collinsworth, David Fulcher, Dave Lapham, Max Montoya, Lamar Parrish, Bob Trumpy, and Reggie Williams. So far, Ken Anderson, Willie Anderson, Paul Brown, Isaac Curtis, Corey Dillon, Boomer Esiason, Chad Johnson, Tim Crumry, Anthony Munoz, and Ken Riley are in the Ring of Honor. Last year, it was Dillon and Crumry as the honorees. So let's start there, Skinny. Who do you think gets in out of that group this year?
Well, here's the one interesting thing before I get into that, and I'm going to make my yearly plea for a player that if you've seen this podcast before, you know who I'm going to be talking about profusely and almost begging people to vote for him. But doesn't it seem weird that like these guys were on the initial ballot, I believe. Right? It's like they just kind of whittled the initial ballot down. And does it mean that they're just going to try to get all these guys in? Is it going to be like in 4 years, there's going to be one guy left on the ballot and you got to vote for him? At some point, don't you need some new blood in this? Or and the other point to this is if you're going to try to get these guys in, let's just do it. Let's just put them in.
Well, that's exactly what, we've been saying each of the last few years as this thing continues and they don't put any new names on the list. It's like, well, okay, at this point, we're not really we're just voting for what order they go in,
Correct.
not who gets in, because
Correct.
You're telling us who's going to get in. It makes it not a real vote. It's fine if they say these people should all be in the Ring of Honor. But like you said, then just have some type of inaugural class or a few classes in a row where you bring a bunch of guys in and then start a real voting process after that. Now, since we're on this topic already, they did say this is the 5th year of doing this. And after this year, they're going to look at the process and announce some changes maybe for next year to make it more sustainable going forward. What do you think that might be, or what do you think they should do now?
Well, I guess that you start adding names to it.
That'd be nice.
I mean, the only problem here is if you're trying to get all these guys in, and I don't begrudge any of these guys from getting, I can make cases for some of them that maybe shouldn't, but I'm not going to go there. That's not fair. That's not nice. If that's what you're trying to do, get them in while they're alive. Stop fiddle farting around with this and let's just do it. I will say one of the changes that has to be made, in my opinion, after this year is just put Dave Lapham in. He's not going to get voted in as a player. He is polarizing to some degree as a broadcaster, right, because he does talk over Dan Horde, but he is still Mr. Bengal. I mean, he is the man when it comes to the Bengals, and he deserves to be in. And just honestly, just put him in. I don't know what the harm in that is. I don't want to say it's a special category because it's a great combination. He was a good player, a really good player. He wasn't a great player. And I think he'd be the first to admit, looking at the list going, I'm probably 9th of 9 guys on that list as a player. But again, the fact that he was a player for a period of time, did start in the first Super Bowl at guard, has been a longtime contributor to the organization as a broadcaster and honestly as kind of an ambassador for the team. Just put him in. Why is this so hard?
Yeah, it's kind of, we've talked about it. It's a tough situation in terms of the vote because if people are going to vote on the merits of players, then he's going to be a hard selection. But I think most people, even if they don't like him as a broadcaster, are comfortable with him being in. They feel like he should be in. He's devoted his life basically to Bengals football at this point. And most people like him as a personality overall, or at least respect his time spent with the organization. So I don't think anyone would have a problem with them just saying Dave Lapham is in. The other name that I think is very interesting on this list, and I'm almost impressed. Now, I don't have anything against this guy, and I'm totally fine with him going in, but I'm almost surprised and in a way impressed that the general Bengals fan has not been has not put Chris Collinsworth in already, has not been swayed by his popularity, or maybe not popularity, but his fame now as a broadcaster after the fact.
Good career, not a great career. I mean, I could make cases for probably 4 or 5 guys on that list ahead of Chris as a player. And again, I'm going to implore for one here in just a minute. But again, he's also poor. I think Bengals fans like him less now as a broadcaster, when at the time he played, he was not just beloved. I mean, he might arguably be one of the top 5 most beloved Bengals in their playing career, at the height of their playing career. I mean, he really was. He was the dude back in his rookie year, second year, third year, fourth year, whatever. But as a broadcaster, for whatever reason, and that's part of the business, right? You go into broadcasting and you try to be honest. And listen, I have my complaints with Chris as a broadcaster because sometimes I don't think he says anything, to be honest with you. But whatever criticism he would have of the Bengals when he's broadcasting them, I don't think it comes from a place of hate. He's a broadcaster. That's his job, is to analyze, and I think he does a good job of separating himself in that regard. I don't need him to be a Bengals homer. I don't expect him to be. I wish fans would understand that.
And I thought he was really good during that playoff run when they went to the Super Bowl that year. He was on all types of podcasts. He was brought into a lot of interviews because he was a former Bengals player and he has that national analyst role. And I thought he talked really well about the team, and he was so knowledgeable about them because he follows them and he's from Cincinnati that I thought he really shined in that moment. So for me, the Bengals fans that hate on him or think he doesn't like the team or something, or the franchise. I mean, maybe he had some issues with the franchise. I think a lot of people have had some issues with the franchise over the last 20 plus years,
Sure.
But overall, I think it comes from the right place, and he is definitely knowledgeable and will talk about them favorably when it's warranted. But did you think he would be in already, or are you not surprised at all?
No, I'm not. I'm going to implore for the 2 players here in a second, and I don't think it's even close. I don't even think this shouldn't even be a debate. Folks, this should be so easy that just go. Those of you that are voting, just go do this now. I mean, again, Chris had a good career, not a great career. Arguably, and I made this argument last year because it was the Corey Dillon debate versus my guy. Arguably, James Brooks is the best all-around running back in Bengals history, and Dave Lapham and I have talked about that, and I think he agrees with that. I didn't say best pure runner. I think we'd all agree Corey Dillon was the best pure runner. But James Brooks was a superb receiver. I mean, not just a good receiver, a superb receiver. I mean, he'd catch balls in traffic down the seam. He's not just taking screens and swings. He's actually running routes and going down the field and catching the ball. Outstanding runner, average over 5 yards a carry, or right at 5 yards a carry. I mean, that's a guy getting it done with the touches he gets. And he was as good a pass blocking running back as you're ever going to find. He was an all-around machine, in my opinion, who was to me, the best running back in Bengals history, best all-around running back in Bengals history. And then it's just the Lamar Parrish one just confound people. Please go do some homework if you don't want to believe me. I mean, he was a 6-time Pro Bowler in the 70s. He was one of the all-decade cornerbacks of the 70s, according to ProFootballReference.com, in a decade in which the Steelers had multiple great players, including Hall of Famer Mel Blount. The Raiders had great players. There were tons of great corners in the AFC in that era, and he was on the all-decade team. I mean, he should be. I've made this case, and again, I'm going to make it. For those who have heard it, I apologize. You've heard it from me a billion times, and I'm really passionate about it. He was the best. He should be a Hall of Famer. He was Deion Sanders before Deion Sanders, period, end of story. He was a tremendous kick returner. He scored touchdowns on the following. At least one of each: a fumble return, a kickoff return, a punt return, an interception, a blocked field goal return. And I think he scored, I believe it's 9 or 11 non-offensive touchdowns. He scored the 5th most non-offensive touchdowns in NFL history. How hard is this?
Yeah. I mean, you've made the point so many times on this podcast that I've become like on that train too, of like, yeah, at this point, how does he not become an obvious selection for everyone? But the other guy to me is James Brooks. That's one that I'm familiar with. I knew his game, and that to me in this year's class jumps off the page. The rest of the names at this point, it's like, unless we're going to do the Dave Lapham thing, which I'd like to see him get in, I would like to see some new names after those 2 that we just mentioned.
I think we're probably at the edge. If you want to do it, I don't think there's a clear-cut criteria of you have to be gone for 5 years or out of the game for 5 years. That sounds like a pretty good number. I think we're closing in on that for Geno Atkins, right? We're darn close on that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Witt's not quite there yet. AJ's not quite there yet. I'm trying to think of some other players. I mean, where Takeo? I mean, where do you go with some of those guys? Justin Smith. I mean, where do we go with at least just put some new blood on there. I'm not here to tell you all the old guys should go in. Again, I could make cases. I'm not going to at the moment for some of the guys that are on the ballot for not getting in if other names are on there. But again, if we're just doing this, we're just going to whittle it down every year with no new names. What are we doing? Just do it already.
Will we see TJ Houshmandzadeh on this list at some point?
Good question. Again, I go back to good career. Was it a great career? A couple of great seasons. Good player.
People really liked him.
I like him too.
Really
and you talk about a guy making the most of a career. I mean, a late round draft pick. I mean, he was Chad's sidekick in college, and Chad was clearly the more highly thought of prospect, and obviously panned out to be great. TJ was kind of the afterthought and turned up to be a really good player who had a couple of really great seasons, for goodness sakes. That's a good debate. Again, there's a problem with the NFL is, unlike baseball, you can look at baseball guys who get you 8 to 10 to 12 great years. In football, that's hard to do, right? Yeah. I mean, if you do it for 3 to 5, you've probably done yourself some service and had a great career.
With the same franchise.
Did it for multiple years. I'm not talking about 3 to 5. TJ had a handful of great years. Chris Collinsworth had a handful of really good, not great, but really good years. David Fulcher had a handful of, in my opinion, great years. But again, is that enough to push it over the top of some of these guys? And he's a name that, he's, to your point, if you're going to start putting names on there, he's one that I totally should see. Rudy Johnson maybe should be on there at some point.
I like Rudy. I'm a Rudy guy. You know what I'd like to see them announce with this new? They say they're going to review things after this year, 5 years in, and try to look forward to what's next. I'd like to see them do like the anti-Ring of Honor, like the Ring of Shame for Bengals, like Big Daddy Wilkinson, David Klingler get in on the first ballot. Who else is on that list?
Where would you put that? Where would you put that Ring of Shame? Would it be like
urinals?
That'd be great. That you know what? That would be great. I'll be right back. I'm going to the David Klingler pisser. Yeah, I'll see. I'm going to Big Daddy's. We'll meet for a beer afterwards.
I'm going to Wilkinson stall down the way there.
I love that concept.
Who else? Who was the fat lineman that just kept getting tossed on his ass a couple years ago that I hated, that they got from the Giants?
Oh, Bobby Hart.
Bobby Hart, definitely first ballot guy.
Freddie Childress, who was a second-round draft pick who didn't even make the team because he just couldn't quite cut it physically. That's a good one.
First ballot guy.
Yeah, you could get a solid Ring of Shame.
Yeah, we maybe need to explore that a little bit farther on a future episode potentially.
Well, I'll be honest. Back to the names to put on. Again, he hasn't been out of the league for a long period of time, but we're closing in on it. When does Vontaze go on there? I don't like Vontaze personally. He was a pain in the ass, but he had some really good years.
Yeah, that's a great name to ask about. Do you? I don't think there's any way he gets on the list. I think the organization will try to not let it happen, and I don't think the fans would vote for him.
I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you what, there were a lot of Tez apologists from the fan base when we would be critical of him in the media. There really were.
Yeah, I find that one hard to believe. One, the organization is going to push back against that one as much as they can. They're going to try to prevent that, I think.
But we thought that might be the case with Corey a little bit too, right? Now,
not in the same way.
No, I
don't think Corey was an embarrassment, and he had a Hall of Fame, almost Hall of Fame NFL career.
But the career here didn't end well, right? So in theory, they could say, hey, you stomped out of town like a big baby. To hell with you. They didn't. So to their credit, they left it on, left it up to the fans, and the fans made their voice heard.
Oh, what do you think about Carson?
That's a great one. I know this has never been a popular take. I'm just going statistically. Eyeball tests can tell you whatever you want it to tell you. I think he was a better quarterback than Boomer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Carson guy at all. I don't think there's no chance I would put him in, but I'm fascinated to see what the fan base would do with him.
I mean, you can argue that he started the resurrection. I mean, he did. He was the quarterback of the resurrection that kind of get the ball rolling towards having some playoff teams, right?
You could also argue he was the reason that Marvin never really got it on track.
And that's possible, too.
He should have been that guy, and he just wasn't it.
And I mean, you can play the what-if game with the injury, too, right? The injuries, actually.
I do think that changed him.
Yeah, no question. That's a good one. I think he should probably go on the ballot and let fans decide. I think he's worthy of the ballot.
Yeah, I think he and Houshmandzadeh are kind of in that category of I think they'll be on the ballot at some point, but I don't know that they need to get in.
Yeah, and I think the other interesting one, and he's still playing, so it's going to be a while, is Andy Dalton. I mean, I think Andy clearly deserves to be on the ballot.
I think Andy Dalton is a guy I'd put in. He's bigger. He's a bigger Bengals guy than Carson is.
No, I would concur with that.
Yeah. All right. I think that's enough on Ring of Honor, unless you have any other thoughts on the current ballot.
Just again, if you don't want to take my word for it, go to YouTube, go to Pro Football Reference, go look up my guy Lamar Parrish. You're not going to be disappointed. You're going to go, oh. And again, I'm not expecting. I'm a 60-year-old man. I was a guy in my era, so I saw him, and I understand a bunch of you watched him didn't see him. So again, there's a bunch of them on YouTube, including a couple of punt returns where you're just going to go like, "Holy cow! How did he get out of that Houdini-like thing?" He was so exciting to watch. Like I said, maybe not the flair of Deion, because Deion clearly knew about marketing and flair, but Lamar had his own kind of quiet flair to him where he was just a freaking dude.
Speaking of all-time great returners, Kewan Ratliff is going to be on that ballot here soon, I'm sure.
Kewan Ratliff was it. Tell you what, I played in a charity basketball game against some Bengals. This is many, many, many years ago. Kewan Ratliff could ball now.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was from Florida, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, he had to be able to ball a little bit. All right, the Bengals and first-round pick Shamar Stewart are still yet to come to terms on a contract. There have been reports that it's about the wording of the guarantee, and the Bengals are trying to change the wording they use in contracts going forward. Skinny, what do you know about that? How likely do you think this is to be resolved? Why are the Bengals choosing to do this right now?
Probably trying to figure out a way to get out from under if he gets hurt, but that's what this is about, is trying to guarantee himself the money if indeed he does get hurt. And that's why he's not practicing, because listen, he hasn't signed it because the guarantees aren't there the way he wants it. The problem is this contract will eventually be fully guaranteed. Go look up contracts on Spot Rack of recent first-round draft picks, and it'll say signed a 4-year, $15 million contract with a $6 million signing bonus and all 15 point whatever guaranteed. So just what difference does it make if you're going to pay him the guaranteed money? And this is the part that gets really frustrating with this organization, is stuff like this where they're trying to win everything. It's not a matter of just getting this guy on the field. Listen, if this was back in the day where you weren't going to basically fully guarantee the contract, and I've talked about this before, when you see contracts for guys signed for 3 years and $62 million, and people lost their mind when Bobby Hart signed that one deal, the year was 3 years and whatever. I wrote a column and said, listen, go look at the last year of his contract. There's a bunch of base salary in there. They can get out from under it. They're just doing it to prorate the signing bonus over 3 years. Well, with the rookie contract right now, it's basically just a guaranteed deal for a slotted amount. You know what the slotted amount's like, $18.8 million. You know that's the number. That number's not changing. That's where he is slotted to make. It's a matter of how that money is structured. And he wants more guarantees each year. I don't blame him for that. Just, you're going to pay him anyway, so just pay him now and get him on the field.
Well, and that's what I'm curious about, because we've had the Bengals back in this Trey Hendrickson situation, which has not been necessarily the case across the board, certainly not nationally. The Bengals are getting crushed a lot, but we're saying, hey, this makes some sense. Trey Hendrickson has been an idiot the way he's handled himself in this. But then you look at this Shamar Stewart situation, it's like, okay, I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt with Trey Hendrickson and say this is him and his agent being over the top and ridiculous. But if you're in that situation already, and you are as thin as you are going into this season at pass rusher, and you went out and you drafted Shamar Stewart, why is this the time to decide you're going to try to change the wording and stick to your guns and like have a holdout situation when you need that guy to be ready to go on day one? You cannot have him behind the 8 ball.
Because you want to win. That's what they want. They want to win the deal. They don't want to win on the field. They want to win the deal. And that's unfortunate. And that's what they're trying to do here, is completely win this deal. And I'll give Zach Taylor a little bit of credit. We talked to him last week in a press conference setting, and obviously questions about Trey came up and questions about Shamar's situation. And I feel bad for him in this regard, because it's really not his decision to make on any of this. But he did have a really good answer, in my opinion. I don't have the direct quote, so I'll paraphrase a little bit. When asked about, he's like, Shamar's doing everything right in meetings, and he's attentive, and he's getting on-field mental reps. But he was asked, how beneficial is it to take real reps? And he said, no question. That's the real reps are an important part of this. And Al Golden, it sticks with me back at the combine in February. Every time this whole situation's come up from guys not being on the field, of how important it was, in his opinion, to take advantage of every OTA opportunity or off-season practice opportunity they had to hit the ground running come training camp. Well, here we are. He's missing another week. You got one more week of OTAs and then mini camp. It is mandatory. Again, if he doesn't participate, in theory, he's subject to fines, but it could be he could participate in very light stuff and do installs, kind of like Jamar Chase did last year, where I'll give Zach credit. He took care of him where he could have, if he didn't participate, but he did. He did install stuff. He didn't really do position drill stuff. I mean, you're going to waste this kid's first off season before he goes to camp, and then you're going to expect him to be a major contributor. And I think you've done him a disservice, all because of language of a contract that you're eventually going to pay in full anyway.
Yeah. And by the way, that you just decided to change for this guy. Like everyone's saying the contract last year wasn't this way,
right?
For your first round pick. So it's like, I just don't understand why they're taking a hard line stance. And I understand if you want to change something up, there has to be, to steal a term of yours, a line of demarcation when you make that decision and when you stick to your guns on it. But this time with this pick, given the situation you're in, not the time to do it. It just doesn't make any sense at all. You're sabotaging yourself.
And I know there's probably a faction in the fan base that's going to blame Shamar Stewart for this because the player, he's been offered a deal, just take it. No, on this one, no. I'm going to side completely with him in this regard. That listen, if he doesn't like the way the bonus thing is structured and he worries about getting hurt and the possibility of maybe getting out from under that, absolutely, dude. I'm not going on that field. Guys have gotten hurt. No, you go, well, it's just an OTA. Well, don't forget Justin, I'm drawing a complete blank. The left tackle, Williams. My Lord Almighty, the guy from Alabama.
Jonah.
Thank you, Jonah Williams. Good Lord. Don't forget he hurt his pec in an OTA.
That's right.
I mean, so it happens. And so again, I'm not blaming this kid for this. Just get it done, guys. I mean, this is the stuff that's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, it really is hard to. And again,
the problem with that last thing is I know what Justin Williams has to you. I know what Jason Williams has to you. And so I couldn't get those out of my head as I'm trying to think of Jonah Williams.
Yeah, understandable. The thing about the Shamar Stewart situation is there's no way, at least that I can see, in which it makes sense to take the Bengals side here. Like, if you're Shamar Stewart, you're looking around like, yeah, everybody before me has gotten this fully guaranteed. You didn't have this language where you can void it every year. No, I'm not going to sign that. I agree with him. Why would he decide to be the one that they go back on that policy with? And I don't blame him or his agent at all.
And then I think of this, and the weird part of that is, do they worry that they drafted a bust that they have to get out from under quickly? Well, shame on you if that's the case.
Right. I mean, that's not his problem. And again, He has all the leverage in this situation. You need him, especially given the situation with Trey Hendrickson.
And yeah, that's the part that'll be most. I mean, let's just say this. Just take the nuclear option that this thing isn't even done until camp, and the Trey situation lingers. It's not just a matter of not having guys at your count. It's a matter of you're completely counting on Miles Murphy and Joseph Osai, and then behind them is what?
Exactly. I mean, nothing. Quite literally nothing at this point. Skinny, one other thing that I wanted to ask you about on the Bengals topic here. Cordell Volson was asked to take a pay cut. He did so. That was talked about this week. You guys talked to him. Why? I don't remember. This is like the third player we've heard about this offseason taking a pay cut with the Bengals. I don't remember ever hearing about this before. Has it always been a thing?
No.
Did rules change? Did the Bengals just realize like they can start calling them tariffs or something and taking money back from them? What are they doing here?
I think that's what it is. I think in the case of both Zach Moss and Cordell Volson, it was a matter of the Bengals going to them and making them take the pay cut with basically the guarantee that you're going to be on the roster this year. And so that's the case of the player going, well, at least I got the security of the money I'm going to make because I'm going to be on the roster this year. I'll take it. The Geno Stone one, I'm still confounded by. If they had signed a veteran safety that you go, hey, that guy can be a starter, like a replacement starter, okay. I'll give you the fact that at that point you had leverage for Geno Stone. I don't think they had any leverage with Geno Stone. I mean, other than he didn't play great last year. Yeah, and you did what to replace him? What did they do to replace him?
Nothing.
Nada.
Yeah, it's strange to me that this is like all of a sudden a thing that they've done multiple times. We've heard about it. It's become a storyline this offseason, and I don't recall ever hearing about this ever before.
Yeah, and it feels like you're collecting just enough shekels to go, okay, now we've got a little pot here to use for Trey.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Are they trying to nickel and dime their way to a Hendrickson deal, or what is the point? Because it doesn't seem like any of these are that impactful to where they'd add up to anything for you.
Yeah, I guess so to some degree because, I mean, every nickel is going to count, but if you look at the cap, there's still, and again, subtract the 10 to 15 mil off the cap number that you see. And I'm not going to go through the whole process of that, but again, the cap number you see on Spot Racker over the cap, I always deduct 10 to 15 mil, and that always winds up in the ballpark. There's still, even if you deduct that, there's still money to sign Trey there. There's still enough money there to do that. And that's still when they haven't done anything with Jermaine Pratt to this point, and they can still get another $6 million saved.
Well, is that what's actually going on with Jermaine Pratt? Have they asked him to take a pay cut? Now they're playing hardball with him because he said no?
I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know if he figures in their plans at all. I mean, you drafted 2 rookies who you think can play right away. Logan Wilson's going to be one of the 2 starters, and Oren Burks is going to compete for a spot. I just don't know where Jermaine fits. And again, yeah, maybe if he says, sure, I'll do it for 1 year, 2.5 mil, you got an extra line. I don't think that's in the works. I mean,
but it just seems crazy that he's still
cut my ass.
It still seems crazy that he's hanging out there in the wind, right?
I think it's a shame on the Bengals if that's what they're doing. Again, it's well within their purview to cut him, and that makes all the sense in the world. If he's not in your plans, you're going to save $6 million. Just do it. But dude, listen, if this guy was an ass, or he was just a bad teammate, or he's been a bad guy for a while, no. I mean, you can think a lot of what you want of Jermaine Pratt as a player, and this past year wasn't very good. But he's been a serviceable pro. He's been a serviceable pro since his rookie year when he stepped into the starting lineup. He's had some really good moments along the way, too. He's done everything right. He was voted a captain by his teammates. Coaches have spoken highly of Jermaine and all the things that he does and his preparation, all that. So this is a guy that you go, I'll do you a solid, man. Listen, we're going to whack you and go find a job, save $6 million. That's just the business of the game. And it's, I told you the last podcast we did, I mean, they moved his locker over by the corners and the safeties. It's like literally, we're getting rid of you. It's just a matter of, so why not do the dude a solid? What do we do? Are they just this is the one that confounds me. This has been a confounding off season in a lot of ways.
It's so strange. And it's like, you're expecting, you hear Zach talking about, well, maybe we'll ramp up the offseason a little bit more because we want to hit the ground running, all that stuff. He knows that's going to be a storyline. And this offseason has seemingly been a clown show a bit of a circus, and it kind of initiated by the Bengals in some instances. Like the Trey Hendrickson thing is what it is. It might be a tough spot for you if you're the Bengals, but some of this other stuff is kind of like, what's going on? What are you guys doing? And
I get there's a lot of next tier free agents still hanging out there that'll probably get signed before a camp, and that's fine. For certain organizations that feel they figure out a way to ramp it up to hit the ground. The Bengals made a point of having to use the OTAs as an important starting point to this offseason. So you've wasted all of this if you bring in a veteran safety of having the time to ramp that guy up, and the Shamar Stewart missing snaps, and the Trey situation is kind of the one-off that we see guys and teams have that, again, they don't want to come to voluntary stuff, and then we see what happens when the mandatory stuff rolls around. But, yeah, I mean, if they bring in a veteran safety in training camp, I'm not going to be mad at it, especially if it's somebody that can compete for a starting spot. But it's like, why didn't you do this 3 months ago when you had a chance to use the OTAs to get this guy ramped up? Because that's what you said, is you wanted to use the OTAs to get the ball rolling in a major way, and feels like they're kind of whiffing on that in a regard.
Yeah, and it doesn't, like, everything just doesn't seem quite planned out. It seems like they're being a bit reactionary and just kind of dangling on some of these things. And the Jermaine Pratt doesn't really affect them because they're probably getting rid of him, but it's still just another thing where you're like, why isn't this wrapped up? Like, why aren't you more definitive about what's going on this offseason? I'm hoping maybe something will reveal itself about that Jermaine Pratt plan here.
Yeah, unless, some team suffers an injury in a mini camp or, the mandatory mini camp where you can have some level of not hard contact, but we've seen injuries in mini camps before that somebody goes down with an injury and you pill for a 7th round pick for them. If that's what you're holding out for, shame on you, man.
I mean, at that point, come on.
Yep.
You guys did have a media availability with the team this week. Did anything else come from that, or anything else you want to talk about here?
Well, the fact that I was in Florida for that media availability, I do not. So
good call. Forgot about that part. The Reds,
right, but I did check in with some of my colleagues who said not much happened other than Jamar talked, and I went, okay, Jamar talks. I get it. It's all good.
Fair enough. Let's move on to the Reds then. They're sitting at 28-28, tied for third in the NL Central with the Brewers, 6.5 games back of the Cubs. We're now officially a third of the way through the season, which a lot of people like to talk about that as you can start making real ideas about a team and having some real analysis now. We've been saying all along this team looks like one that's going to be consistently inconsistent. They'll have a good day or two, but they're going to slide again right after that. And I guess, Skinny, do you see any reason to change your opinion now that we're a third of the way through? It feels like that's kind of been the case all along, right?
So, yes, to your point, yes, because it's been proven out through 56 games. But then I look and go, okay, Spencer Steer's starting to hit a little bit. Is the light bulb about to go off for Ellie to do superstar things? Or is this what we see all the time, is that flicker of shooting star on a night like he had where he slugs 2 home runs, including a bomb, and it's coming with him, and then it goes away for a while, and then you feel like you've got kind of a lineup right now. I think their lineup, honestly, against righties is pretty good at the moment. That's great until Austin Hayes goes down again with an injury, or this guy goes down again with an injury. And, the Matt McClain one, I do like the fact they're kind of letting him figure it out, keep sticking him in there, but batting him ninth. Do you say, okay, he's close to having the light bulb go off? I'm on that teeter part where I don't want to go overboard to the negative side, but I also can't bring myself to go, they're about to go on a run, because they don't have guys that have proven to go on a run. I mean, I hope this stretch, because Ellie's actually had a pretty good stretch of games in addition and prior to the 2 home run game in Kansas City. I want to believe this is the start of just greatness to come. But I haven't seen it. I keep doing this to myself, like, okay, here he goes. And then you're like, okay, 1 for 18 with 10 strikeouts. Here we go. And that's, again, I need to see it. I mean, we all need to see it. It just feels like he's right on that cusp of doing some great things and carrying the load. But it's so hard to go all in, right? Because then the offense did some really good things against the Cubs, and what happened? The bullpen imploded on 2 nights. And so even when the offense was doing good things, the starters had a spot where they just weren't getting deep into games, and you had to turn to the bullpen. The bullpen was a disaster, and it's why it feels weird even that this team is at 500, because it suffered so many goofy, ugly losses, right?
Yeah. Well, you can look at it that way. There's also, a lot of people, and that can look at it the way of they've played kind of the weaker part of their schedule and favorable schedule to this point, and they're at 500 right now. What's it going to look like when things get rougher? I mean, granted, Tyler Stevenson is starting to come around. Hunter Green is going to be back in the mix here soon. Those are positives. You mentioned the Ellie thing. I mean, you can make the argument that there's still upside for this team. One of the problems is the NL has been pretty good this year, like especially at the top. So it doesn't feel like you're really going to get into that mix. You are truly maybe trying to hang around that last wild card spot if you even have a chance. I just don't see this team being able to make that type of run at any point.
No, it's going to have to win the division probably. I mean, there's, to your point, I mean, the Padres are 31-22, the Giants are 31-24, the Cardinals are 31-24, the Cubs lead the division 34-21, the Mets are 34-21, the Phillies are 35-19. But then there's the Rockies, who are on pace, and this was to your point of they were a third of the way through the season going into last night, where of course they lost yet again. Through the third part of the season, they're on pace to go 27-135.
Impressive. That would be record-setting, right?
That would be historic.
Yeah.
The old adage for a long time in baseball was every team wins 50, every team loses 50. It's what you do in those middle 60-ish games that prove to be the difference. They can't even get halfway to 50, basically.
Yeah, this is a true outlier.
This is a true outlier. This is true awfulness.
Yeah, when there's always that, like the NBA team that's real bad and everyone goes, oh, could Kentucky beat the Philadelphia 76ers? Right. Or whatever. This is one of those situations where we might have a real question of like, could some lower level team be able to beat them? That might be a possibility, because they are a true lower level organization right now.
Paul Skeens on the mound for LSU would have a fighting chance.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, there's no question in my mind. I got 27 wins, man. What are we? So it's funny. So I've got a friend of mine who he was in Florida a couple of weeks ago, and he said it was the day the Orioles fired their manager. He said, "Hey, I can't make a bet on my app in Florida." He said, "Would you mind making a $100 win bet on Baltimore on this day?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." And he said, "I'll pay you when I get back, or I can Venmo you." I said, "No, I'll see you next week. Just pay me when you get back." And put the bet down, and unfortunately for him, Baltimore lost. And he came in, gave me a crisp $100 bill, and said thanks. I said, "Yeah, sorry, I was hoping to pay you." He said, "It doesn't matter, dude." He goes, "I've made about $4,000 just fading the Rockies." I'm like, seriously? He goes, that's all I do is just fade the Rockies. I said, yeah, but you got to give so much in juice. He goes, does it matter? You're not paying the juice because they never win.
It's a great point.
It is a great point.
Good for him. I mean, I don't know that I have really anything else on the Reds. It just kind of feels like that's where we're at with them right now. And I mean, it's hopefully some of these guys get healthy and start playing better. But
that's the part. I'd like to see what this team can do if healthy. I mean, Christian Encarnacion Strand's had some rehab at bats. I think he's going to have probably a couple more rehab games. Hopefully he can add some punch to the lineup when he comes back up. And again, every time I want to just dive in on Ellie and just call him a superstar, it fades. Again, he is the perfect epitome of shooting star. Like when it bursts, you go, whoa. And you go, wait a minute, where did it go? And I hope this is the start of greatness for him. It feels like it's closing in on that.
Yep. All right, let's get into some Ask Any Anything. I asked for, since we were on vacation, I asked for like a travel vacation edition of Ask Any Anything questions. So that's what we've got here. We'll start with a sports-related one, though, as we always try to do.
Yep.
This question is, you have to drive to Green Bay for the Bengals Week 6 game.
I've done it.
You're road tripping instead of driving this one, okay? Choose 3 Cincinnati sports media members to fill out your car to Green Bay.
Well, they've been driving companions before, and we played an epic left-right center game as we were driving in a snowstorm to Buffalo, including the driver, one Jay Morrison, at one point turning around on one of the turnpikes with the snow coming down, making his roll, turning around, and we all yelled, "Snowplow!" and somehow avoided the snowplow. So Paul and Jay would clearly be in the car for sure. Well, he's going to fly on the flight, but Dan Hort is always a great time to be around. I've never had a bad time with Dan Hort around. So if we could talk Dan into riding with us, like maybe he had to do a basketball game in Buffalo the night before, and he couldn't charter up, and he wanted to go that early. Yeah, that would be a good crew.
You can use whoever you want for this one. That's a great answer right there. I had a feeling that the left right center crew was going to be involved.
Now James Rapine could be a part of that too, because James actually he learned left right. So he knew left right center, but I took him to the cleaners on left right center going up to Cleveland last year to the point where he was trying to win his money back by betting on live games, and it was the weekend of I think it was Texas. Was it Texas, Alabama, or Texas, Georgia? Make a long story short, one of the games, the team that he wanted to bet on was winning, and I said, all right, I'll bet you half. I said just money line, straight up half. Of course, my team came back to win, and so he did. Then he tried to double down on him. I go, dude, just stop. I'm
quit chasing.
Just stop. You're chasing at the moment. He goes, yeah, I'm stopping.
Yeah,
so just for my own pocketbook's sake, I wouldn't mind James going along too, and James is good company.
I would like to say that it's impossible to go on a losing streak like that in left, right, center. It's a game of chance. There's no way you took him to the cleaners, but I've been in that same situation as James with you on a road trip like that. So I know that situation, and sometimes you just gotta take your L and move on.
And she's tiny, and she's a good time. Kelsey Conway we'd squeeze her in there as well.
That's a crowded car all of a sudden. All right, what would be your dream event to cover from a travel perspective, Skinny? The Maui.
I've been to the Maui. I've covered the Maui. That was a good. I'm glad you brought that. That was a good one. I got a chance to take the family. My kids were really young.
That was Kentucky playing in it, I assume.
Yeah. That was in 2001 or 2. They lost. Gonzaga had Ronnie Turioff. Remember him?
Oh yeah. Of course.
But it was weird. So my wife went kind of as a fan. She went on the trip. And then she got tickets for herself. I think our youngest got in for free because she was like 4 and she could sit on a lap. So she got tickets for my oldest daughter, who at the time was 8 or 9 or whatever, 8, 9 or 10. And so they went as a fan. And the thing that's crazy, it is such a tiny arena. I mean, it is really, really small, but it's just so cool because you're like, I'm in Hawaii covering basketball, and it's always good basketball, right? I mean, that's the part of it. There's just so many good teams in it. And then you're like, but I'm in this little rinky-dink high school gym. It has a high school feel to it. It's a weird environment. It really is, but it's a cool environment. And again, you're going to Hawaii. We spent some extra time after. In fact, I actually went early on that trip. That was the trip where UC got in the fight with Hawaii in football. We went to Oahu for a couple of days before going over to Maui. And part of it was I tied it in. I talked my boss into let me go cover that game. I'm like, hey man, I'm going to be close enough. I'm just going to island hop. That he goes, yeah. And so that was the Rick Minner. It's the line's been used a lot on the air as just a drop of this is a disgrace. And it was one of the craziest things I've ever been a part of because I went down to the field. So I worked for the Cincinnati Post at the time. We didn't have a Sunday paper, but I was going to, we always wrote a story. We put it in the Monday. And so I go down to the field. It's not going to be a long story, 15, 18 inches. That's not a lot to write. It wasn't a big hole. It was kind of a season-ending game in not a lost season, but, kind of a game. But I'm there, so I'm going to cover it. So I go down to the field like with 5 minutes to go because I'm going to grab Coach Minner. I guess I was able to grab him. They let me grab him on the field as soon as the game was over. Times have changed, as you know, in that regard, Rick. And all of a sudden, this fight breaks out. And I just see bodies going everywhere. Dave Gaduli, the father of quarterback Gino Gaduli, who won he was a bare knuckles fighting champion. And one guy, as you would know, as well as I do, I'm not messing with Dave Gaduli. I'm just not. Dave is in there just landing haymakers, throwing people off. The wildest one for me, though, was all of a sudden I heard this go by my ear. And I went and looked. I saw it land. I'm like, what the heck was that? It was a full baby food jar that somebody had just whizzed from the stands.
You could have been dead.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would not have been good.
That was a wild time. But, yeah, to your point, and again, to cover something, because I went as a fan, I still wouldn't mind going to cover the Masters at some point. I don't think that's ever going to come to fruition. I went, bucket list checked off, but those are two good ones.
Yeah, that's great answers. What's the most embarrassing thing Skinny has ever done on a family vacation?
I yelled at a bus driver at Disney. So we went, this is many, many, many years ago. We were staying at a Disney, we were staying at the All-Star Sports, and they had a kind of a campfire picnic-y thing at one of the Fort Wilderness things, like a barbecue. And so we went to that. And I'm not going to lie, probably over imbibed a little bit. There was a keg that was always out, and I don't mind just going and taking care of the keg. But the problem was, so a bus came, a second bus came. We were kind of at the tail end of it, right? There's like 8 or 10 of us that were at the tail end, and we just couldn't get on the bus. And that was a pain in the ass as it was, but I get it. I mean, there's only so many people can fit. Well, it took another 30 to 45 minutes for a bus to come, and I was about at my wit's end. It's the end of a long day of doing this. And I yelled at that bus driver like he had never been yelled at in his lifetime. At one point, he asked me to get off. I said, no, I'm not going to get off. Somehow I got talked into calming down enough. We got to the property, and I was pretty well chastised the next morning, as you can only imagine.
Yeah, I bet that conversation went well with the wife.
Yeah. I thought I was taking up for everybody. I thought, listen.
Yeah, what a knight in shining armor you were.
45 minutes waiting for the bus, man. That's why, hey, listen, that's why when I just came back from Disney, it's more my daughter works, so we got a chance to go down and see her and spend some time doing stuff in the parks and having a couple pool days and whatnot. For those that have done it, if you hear me out and you've been there, I love the Skyliner. Boy, you can get on that thing and just float around the parks and hop off if you want to get a beverage, or it's so damn convenient to me. I love me the Skyliner. It doesn't go to Disney World itself. It goes to Epcot and Hollywood Studios. So when you go to Disney, you got to take the bus. I'm just not.
What is it? Just like a tram that goes through the park?
A sky tram.
Oh, nice.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
I got to keep that in mind. Now we're getting to that age here quick. Yep. I'm sure.
I will say this. This is my 4th trip now to see my daughter at Disney as a worker. And we have as a family come to this point of don't make dad stay for fireworks, map out the idea for the day. Let's do what we're going to do. And everybody wins. And we actually had I'll go back. Like I got back in time to watch almost every, like the tip, because they were 8:30 tips. I got usually back to the hotel right at the tip time for the NBA playoff games. They'd come sauntering in like 10:30 after watching the fireworks. It was a win-win for us all.
There you go. All right, a couple of would you rather, a little bit more rapid fire type questions here. Would you rather watch your team win a national title while stuck in an airport or watch them lose courtside?
Well, I'd rather watch them win the title.
Yeah, it's got to be the answer. If not, the
courtside
you're not really a fan.
Yeah, the courtside would even be more agonizing, right? That you were there to watch the demise. Yeah.
12-hour road trip or 12-hour travel day with connecting flights?
Ooh. Depends on how long the layover is and what the bar is like in the airport.
Yeah, is there Chili's at the airport? If so,
correct. Yeah, I spent some time in the Bahama Breeze. For travel nightmare's sake, folks, I had one last night coming back from Orlando where I was supposed to take a 6:30 flight back. My family's staying down for a couple more days. They dropped me off at the airport. For those of you who've gone to Orlando, getting through security can be a disaster. I got through in 6 minutes. It was perfect. My flight boarded at 5:45, and I was literally sitting in a bar at 4 o'clock having a beer. And I called you about, hey, when do you want to do the podcast? Made a couple of calls, checked some emails, had another beer or so. Go down to my boarding area to board, and I'm seeing my thing flash. I'm like, this can't be good. And it shows that my flight had been diverted to Tampa. And then thunderstorms came, and they had a ground stop for 3 hours. And so then the storms stop, and we're still at the gate, and there's a flight to Brazil across from us that's boarding. It's like boarding 45 minutes early, but they're boarding like, oh, okay, we're at least going to get out of here now at some point. Then we get the thing over the intercom. Attention, please. Those of you waiting here for flight blah, blah, blah to Cincinnati. I hate to tell you the flight attendants have clocked out for the night, so we're trying to round up a flight crew. We're all looking around like, does this mean we're not getting out of here tonight? Suffice it to say, 2 showed up. They got a nice round of applause when they did. The gate agent kept assuring us, we have 2 more on the way. We have 2 more on the way. Another half hour passed. They showed up. They got a standing ovation. We got out of there finally at 11:45, got back to Cincinnati at 1:45, got home after taking an Uber around 3. That was a travel nightmare for me. So I'm still, I love airports. So if you gave me 12 hours of connecting flights, I think I'd do it.
The thing about the flights is you're not the one driving, so you can be doing whatever, right? Working, watching something, correct. Listening to podcasts. I actually, especially after this last, we did the whole thing to Destin. Yeah. We didn't want to take a 2-year-old on the plane, and I'm not an expensive car guy, but I think as soon as they're available and like normally available, I think I want a self-driving car. I mean, the idea of just being able to sit there and be like working the whole time or be on my laptop the whole time while we're doing that there's so much of it's just expressway where there's nothingness and you're just driving through it trying to stay awake. I mean, I think that's worth it personally.
I will say I have a buddy of mine who, Todd Curlis. He's the one that went to the Masters with me. We've taken a couple other road trips. He likes to drive. So does Jay Morse. It's like when we go on these trips, we always go, Jay, you want to ride with us? I'll drive. He likes to drive. Okay, man, do it. Do your thing.
Yeah, I don't hate a road trip necessarily, but I don't love driving the whole way.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm about 2.5 hours is my limit. Good line. I guess I could do like a Nashville because I'm driving.
4 is about perfect.
4's about that's a good call. 4's a good number. Like driving to Cleveland, I can do. Driving to Pittsburgh, I do. Yeah, driving to Nashville. 4, that's a good call. 4's about it. You give me longer than that, nah, no thanks.
Would you rather get upgraded to first class and sit next to a talker, or keep a coach seat where no one is talking to you?
Keep a coach seat. I sat last night in 31A by the window with full row open and full rows behind me open and closed. Let me just touch on that topic for a minute. So we're in line to ride Guardians of the Galaxy at Disney's Epcot. My favorite ride. It's just it was an 80-minute wait, but it was one of those ones where when we got off the ride, we're all like, that was worth the wait. I love that ride a lot. But behind us in line, I started calling him Mr. Disney. He spent the whole time in line talking to a family behind us about, now, if you go to this ride at this time, it'll be about a 45-minute wait. And if you go to this ride, you got to skip. Now, if you get in line in time for an hour of this.
Mr. Disney.
I made up a Saturday Night Live skit about Mr. Disney. I'm like, this should be a full Saturday Night Live skit of Mr. Disney.
I don't know. I don't want to offend anyone because I know there are a lot of people out there that like the Disney thing, but the grown men that are super into Disney scare me a little bit. A little bit.
I will say the one part about the one part you can get away with on flights today with the talkers is with the entertainment console in front of you, you have to plug your earphones in. Yeah. So I immediately do that. I don't want the conversation. B, I want to be entertained. There's something on in front of me. There's a game or a show on, or I can scroll through a show I want to watch. You can do that pretty quickly too. So if I could get upgraded to first class with a talker that I could quickly ignore, I would clearly take the first class upgrade.
Yeah, I that's the move. You just, as soon as I sit down, I always put my earbuds in, and there's sometimes I forget to even turn anything on them. I just want to make sure they're in so people see, like, I'm not here to talk.
So Rick, I did the unthinkable and the unmentionable last night on the plane.
You took your shoes off? You sick?
No, I did the the passing of the gas. I kept trying to hold it,
Hell, Skinny. We talked
and I'm like,
about this.
I know that. And I'm like, I just have to, I got to do this. I mean, so it was one where it reverberated pretty good, I think. I had the earphones in. I'm like, crap, I couldn't hear that, but somebody had to. So I started looking around. My guy's next to me. The guy, again, I'm in an aisle by myself or in a row by myself, but across the aisle, my guy's dead asleep. Woman in the thing I looked at the row in front of me. They all got their earphones in. I'm looking around like, everybody's got their earphones in. And then I'm just waiting for somebody to smell it. Cause I'm like, oh my God, I had to turn on the vent really high. I felt like standing up and apologizing. I really did. Because there's one of those I just can't hold. I'm trying so hard to do this, and I can't. I got.
Were you looking at people's reactions?
Oh yeah, I'm like, oh gosh, I hope because I could smell it right away, and I'm like, oh, I put the hair on really high.
Did you see any wondering eyes looking around?
No,
like you did that?
Maybe I got that thing on quickly enough where it took it away.
We had a flight back from, I want to say it was the flight back from Green Bay this year, the Milwaukee Green Bay swing for NKU,
yep.
where we that's the only trip that everything else is a bus, but we fly back from there on a charter. And this time they offered the opportunity, and you know what, it might have been the Charleston trip actually, now that I think of it, because I think that was on a holiday. They offered the opportunity for some donors to come on the plane with the team, right? So Jim Kelch and I get on the back of the bus. We were kind of late, like one of the last ones getting on. So we kind of make our way to the back. And there was just a couple donors kind of sitting back there. And all of a sudden, midway through the flight, I'm just smelling like dead skunk, death, whatever. I look over at Kelch and he kind of raises his eyebrows like, what's going on? You smell that too? And I'm like, yeah. And like, we're looking around. I mean, it's just rich donors sitting around us blowing dusty farts apparently. And you kind of want to like, ask, but at the same time, you know what? It's a weird situation. So, but it kept going. It kept going.
They did it? They were probably old, A, and B, got no cares to give.
Yeah, and the other part of it that I thought about is like, I'm guessing one of them had like a bad stomach, went to the back of the plane, like, oh, I'm going to try to be polite and do this in the back here. And then me and Kelch get on board and walk all the way to the back and get on behind them. And they're like, my plan's been foiled here. So they just let them rip anyway, I guess. I don't know. But it just kept going. It was bad.
That's bad. That's bad.
All right. That's all we got.
I appreciate the questions as always. We will be back next week as we get back into our regular rotation after taking a week off. For Rick Boring, I'm Richard Skinner. It's been the Skinny Podcast, the weekly Potpourri edition, presented by Blake, the Attorney Maislin.